Wait, nobody saw this coming. Just hours before her return to the Indiana Fever, Sophie Cunningham dropped a statement that completely changed the narratives, and even Caitlin Clark didn't expect it. What she revealed might shift everything for this team, and fans are already reacting. Here's exactly what happened. There is a seismic, completely underreported detonation currently unfolding inside the most closely watched locker room in the entire history of professional women's basketball. It has nothing to do with trade rumors. It has nothing to do with injury reports. It has nothing to do with the heavily choreographed press conference statements that the mainstream sports media aggressively feeds to a passive, unquestioning audience every single morning. What is actually happening right now exists entirely outside the sanitized, carefully manufactured lane of conventional sports coverage. It is happening in the boardrooms, in the direct message threads between agents and executives, in the quiet back-channel conversations between global corporate sponsors and the representatives of athletes who just completely, ruthlessly redefined what it means to generate real generational wealth in professional sports without ever touching an MVP trophy. And sitting at the absolute center of this specific financial earthquake is a woman who arrived in Indianapolis with a highly calculated, completely unspoken corporate blueprint. A woman who did not come to steal the spotlight. A woman who came to do something infinitely more valuable. She came to own the economy that lives directly inside the spotlight. And what she just did ahead of the Indiana Fever's return with Caitlin Clark has absolutely stunned not just the fan base, not just the national media apparatus, but the very front office executives and brand strategists who thought they understood exactly how this market was going to move. Welcome back to WNBA Pro. You already know we do not operate in the comfortable padded world of polite sports media here. We do not recycle press releases. We do not soften the brutal mathematics of the sports business industrial complex for casual fans who are not ready for the unfiltered reality. We deal exclusively in cold, surgical corporate intelligence. We deal in the kind of high leverage information that the top percentile of informed operators use to understand what is actually happening beneath the surface of professional basketball, while everyone else is still reacting to yesterday's highlight reel. Close every unnecessary application on your screen right now. Put your phone down unless you are watching this on your phone, in which case turn off every single notification. Eliminate every distraction from your environment immediately, because what we are about to expose in this specific breakdown is not a surface level sports story. This is a masterclass in brand architecture, proximity leverage, and the ruthless monetization of digital attention at a scale that professional sports has genuinely never witnessed from a player at this specific tier of the competitive hierarchy. And if you do not completely understand the mechanics we are about to dissect with absolute clinical precision, you will continue watching other athletes generate massive, life-altering wealth from the exact same opportunities that are sitting directly in front of you while you consume instead of operate. Let us calmly rewind the historical tape to the precise moment this specific financial empire was architected from the ground up, because nothing that is happening right now with Sophie Cunningham is accidental. Nothing is organic. Nothing fell into her lap. Every single element of the position she currently occupies in the Indiana Fever economic ecosystem was the result of a calculated, deliberately executed corporate strategy that most professional athletes in this league do not possess the financial intelligence to even conceptualize, or let alone execute under the pressure of a nationally televised spotlight. When Sophie Cunningham arrived in Indianapolis, the entire sports media complex made the same catastrophic analytical error they make every single time a veteran role player gets moved to a high-profile franchise. They evaluated her exclusively through the lens of basketball production, three-point percentage, defensive rating, minutes per game, on and off metrics, the shallow statistical vocabulary that sports media uses to assign value to players who exist outside the primary offensive hierarchy. They completely, utterly failed to recognize that Sophie Cunningham did not arrive in Indiana with a basketball resume. She arrived with a boardroom strategy. She arrived with the cold, on a precise understanding that the Indiana Fever locker room was not merely a basketball environment. It was the single most concentrated source of global corporate attention in the entire sports entertainment landscape. Every major network, every streaming platform, every Fortune 500 sponsor, every lifestyle brand with a marketing budget, every hospitality conglomerate, every consumer goods corporation trying to access the most rapidly growing sports audience demographic in the country was pointing their full financial and media infrastructure directly at one singular location. Indianapolis, Indiana, the Indiana Fever facility, and most specifically at the generational economic anomaly who walks through that facility's doors every single day and commands the kind of authentic or deeply personal audience loyalty that corporate marketing departments spend hundreds of millions of dollars annually trying to artificially manufacture and consistently fail to produce. You already understand who that specific individual is: the billion-dollar investment, the ultimate corporate asset, the athlete who completely redefined the economic ceiling of an entire professional league simply by stepping onto a professional basketball court. The presence of Caitlin Clark in that building is not merely a basketball phenomenon, it is a gravitational economic force. And Sophie Cunningham recognized with absolute terrifying clarity what every rival player, every agent, and every front office executive in this league was far too slow to recognize. Proximity to that specific gravitational force is not just athletically valuable. It is a primary asset class in the modern attention economy. It is a direct, unmediated pathway to the kind of global brand exposure that previously required an athlete to be the primary star of the show. And Sophie Cunningham executed the proximity acquisition strategy with a level of precision that should be studied in sports management programs at every major university in the country for the next 2 decades. But before we can fully analyze the seismic implications of what she just revealed ahead of the Indiana Fever return, we need to precisely understand the financial foundation she built to arrive at this specific moment, because the announcement that has stunned fans, stunned sponsors, and sent a cold wave of pure executive panic through rival front offices across this entire league did not emerge from nowhere. It emerged from a layered, meticulously constructed corporate architecture that Sophie Cunningham assembled brick by brick over the course of a single season in the most hostile, most competitive, most scrutinized athletic environment in the current sports media landscape. Let us critically analyze the exact mechanics of how that architecture was assembled, because this is where the blueprint becomes something every operator in this space absolutely must understand. The first layer was physical, and it was the most public, most visible, most emotionally charged execution of the entire strategy. When the opposing roster deployed their borderline dirty defensive scheme against the primary economic engine, they made a calculation. They calculated that physical intimidation directed at the billion-dollar asset would go unanswered. They calculated that the Indiana Fever roster did not possess the corporate enforcer necessary to neutralize their aggression and re-establish the protective perimeter around the primary revenue source. They were catastrophically wrong. Sophie Cunningham did not hesitate for a single frame of broadcast footage. She stepped directly into the line of corporate fire and delivered the most important business transaction of her professional career. And I need you to completely resist the impulse to evaluate that moment through the primitive, emotionally driven lens of sports entertainment. I need you to evaluate it through the precise, cold mathematics of the modern attention economy, because that single act of highly public, uncompromising physical loyalty to the primary asset did not merely generate one viral clip. It did not merely produce one trending topic on a social media platform for a single 24-hour news cycle. It executed a complete, instantaneous corporate repositioning of Sophie Cunningham's global brand identity. Within hours, her follower count was accelerating at a velocity that brand consultants spend entire careers trying to engineer for their clients through expensive, meticulously planned campaigns that routinely underperform exactly what Sophie Cunningham achieved organically through one single, perfectly timed act of enforcer economics. She crossed the 1 million follower threshold, and in the modern digital economy, that specific threshold is not merely a vanity metric. It is the line of demarcation between an athlete who is a potential marketing partner and an athlete who is a primary marketing vehicle. It is the number that unlocks direct conversations with global corporate sponsors who operate at the level of Marriott Bonvoy, of major consumer technology companies, of lifestyle brands with 8-figure annual marketing budgets, of hospitality conglomerates that activate at Super Bowls, NBA finals, and major international sporting events. 1 million followers is the number that transforms a veteran minimum contract player into a premium endorsement asset, and Sophie Cunningham achieved it at the exact perfect moment in her financial timeline, because her contract was expiring. The old artificial financial ceiling that had suppressed her earning potential to a deeply insulting, aggressively below market $100,000 guarantee for a player providing elite enforcer value while standing next to the most commercially valuable athlete in women's professional sports history was approaching its termination date, and the newly signed collective bargaining agreement had just detonated the entire financial structure of the WNBA salary market. The cap had exploded to a previously unthinkable $7 million. Supermax contract designations were suddenly creating life-changing financial possibilities for players at every tier of the competitive hierarchy. And Sophie Cunningham was entering that completely transformed open market not merely as a basketball player with solid three-point shooting metrics. She was entering it as a verified million-follower digital media platform with an enforcer reputation, a highly loyal global fan base, and the single most valuable positioning attribute available in the current WNBA commercial ecosystem. She was the proven, battle-tested, publicly authenticated protector of the billion-dollar investment. She was the player who stepped into the line of fire on national television and proved her loyalty to the franchise's primary asset with her body, and now she is entering free agency with that proof encoded into the global sports consciousness. That is not a basketball negotiation, that is a corporate acquisition negotiation with multiple competing bidders. But here is the element of this specific financial story that has absolutely stunned fans, confounded mainstream media analysts, and sent a genuine wave of executive alarm through the front offices of rival franchises that were already preparing their financial offers. Sophie Cunningham did not wait for the Indiana Fever general manager to initiate the conversation. She did not sit in the restricted free agency process and passively accept whatever the franchise decided her market value was. She went directly to the global corporate infrastructure and secured outside funding entirely independent of any WNBA salary negotiation. She fundamentally understood that in the modern sports economy, the contract is no longer the primary revenue stream. The contract is the credentialing document. The contract tells the corporate world that you are active, relevant, and positioned inside the ecosystem they want to access. The actual wealth generation happens in the off-court economy, and Sophie Cunningham has now executed a move in that off-court economy that should cause every single athlete in this league to completely, urgently, fundamentally reassess their understanding of where professional value is actually generated in the current sports business landscape. The announcement arrived without the kind of elaborate pre-launch fanfare that usually surrounds major brand partnership reveals. It dropped with the quiet, assured confidence of someone who does not need to perform excitement because they understand exactly what they have secured and exactly what it means in the context of their overall financial architecture. She announced a premium multi-episode podcast partnership with Marriott Bonvoy titled Live from the Bracket. I need you to completely stop whatever secondary cognitive process you are running in the background of your attention right now and focus with absolute clinical precision on the specific corporate magnitude of what that announcement actually represents. Marriott Bonvoy is not a regional hospitality brand distributing promotional deals to athletes with moderate social media followings in exchange for Instagram posts. Marriott Bonvoy is a multinational hospitality conglomerate operating over 8,000 properties across 139 countries with an annual marketing investment that operates at a scale that most professional sports leagues cannot match with their entire broadcasting infrastructure. Marriott Bonvoy does not participate in casual endorsement arrangements. Every single partnership they construct is the output of a rigorous internal evaluation process that assesses brand alignment, audience quality,